So it turns out that every time I turn around, there's another budget knife that is just blowing my socks off. If it feels like you're running into that as well, make sure you smash the like button. And while you're down there, leave a comment. Let me know which budget knife recently blew your socks off. How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And this particular piece of sharp and shiny is the Petrified Fish PF929. I know, another budget knife forever mired in the muck that is letters and numbers. Why knife companies seem to stick to this naming convention, I have no idea. But what I do know is that if it sells, it's good enough for them. And if it's good design, it's also good enough for me. The question then remains, is it good enough for you? I've had this knife for the last 24 hours, and in that time, it's given me enough context to come up with a solid first impressions, or at least I think it's solid. And overall, I'm very impressed, but I do have a few concerns. Is this the next budget king? Or is it just another budget knife? Let's find out. All right, so here we go with the Petrified Fish PF929. This knife is, quite honestly, a really cool knife. Let's go over the specs real quick, and because I don't have them memorized, I'm just going to go ahead and magically make them appear on the screen like this. So yeah, feel free to go back and pause that if you want more information on that. But let's talk about this for a second. We got G10 handle scales, steel liners. It's a liner lock with a single-sided captive pivot, D2 PVD coated blade with a flipper tab and deployment whole thing. I'm not sure, it's not really a circle, it's more of an oblong-esque type shape, and you have a tiny amount of fuller right there, which means that yes, you can indeed Spidey flick this. As for the rest of the construction, you do get a stamped pocket clip that is, for the most part, deep carry. You get a matching G10 back spacer, of course, lanyard hole, and this blade, which is kind of a sheep's foot Warncliffe, which is kind of a style these days. This is the PF929, and it's not necessarily a brand new model. They've had this out for at least a year, maybe more, and it's the first Petrified Fish knife that I've actually had on this channel. And here's the thing, a lot of people ask me to review Petrified Fish knives, and I'm actually starting to understand why. The reason why is that this is really cool. You get this contouring on the G10 handle scales, so it's not just a flat slab style construction. On top of that, while the scales themselves are somewhat polished, they're also grooved, and it feels and looks kind of like petrified wood. In fact, I would venture to say that this is some of the best feeling G10, period. Trust me when I say I don't take this lightly. For example, this is my Spyderco Shaman. It's a Blade Ops exclusive in LMAX. This knife is infinitely more expensive than this one. We're talking about at least 10 times more expensive. This also has G10, and the G10 handle scales on this Petrified Fish legitimately feel better. I'm not saying that this is a better knife. I'm just saying that the G10 handle scales on this knife are extremely well done. I'm a really big fan of the fact that we get the company logo on one side of the pivot, and then just the plain screw side on the other side. And the stamped pocket clip, the shape of the pocket clip does not bug me. This is another one of those stamped pocket clip designs that I can actually get behind. Would I have preferred that they had gone with, an aluminum or titanium pocket clip? Yeah, but I mean, when we're talking about the under $50 price range, you just have to be okay with not getting that. That being said, something that you do get that you don't normally get on knives in this price range is this awesome back spacer that matches the handle scales, and it feels good, the aesthetic is good, and for once I don't actually wish that that was made of a different material. I'm really enjoying this G10 all around, and I like that it goes all the way around and not just on the back. So you don't necessarily have a ton of open space back here. You do have some, and when we're peeking in there, you can see that the inside of those liners has been milled out, which is important because in case you missed the specs, here's the weight in real time. This is not a small knife. This knife weighs 5.5 ounces. And for comparison's sake, here's that Spyderco Shaman again. Everyone knows how big that is. And we'll put it up against this guy. These are very similarly sized knives. The length is pretty much dead on, and the carry profile is also very similar as far as the overall width of that blade. In fact, I like comparing this to a Spyderco because this almost looks like Spyderco's evil cousin. This could be a, an angry evil pelican face, but it's cool, and I don't mind that at all. I'm a big fan of Wharncliffe style blades, and I like flat grinds, which this one most definitely is. The PVD coating is not necessarily my favorite. I would have actually liked to have seen some striations on a satin finish version of this, but that's okay. The PVD coating is actually going to help this D2 blade remain more rust resistant, so that's fine. We do get a little bit of factory wear and tear around the edges. That's right, I did not put that there. That came like that from the factory, and that's also fine because just like the pre-stressed jeans that people like to buy, it adds a certain aesthetic. So that little wear and tear over time will wear in, not wear out, and that's pretty nifty. As far as body screws go, we get a T8 pivot, T6 body screw, and then another body screw down here. So not a whole lot to do to take this bad boy apart. A small gripe that I do have is that these screws are not recessed and the clip is not recessed. I don't think that it would have been a big deal to have a cutout right there for the clip and then also get some flat screws for that clip. I just don't understand. It's not a clip that you can switch to the other side. I know, bummer for all of you out there who are left-handed, but they are pretty much catering to the majority, which is right-handed individuals. Let's talk about the action. The action is running off of bearings, and it's not bad. It's also not the greatest. And so while I really love the deployment hole and I really love the backspacer and I like the pocket clip, the action on here is kind of muted when you go to close it. It's not drop shut at all, and given the weight of this knife, I kind of feel like it should be. Remember the QYG MGS GD22K that I reviewed the other day? That one was running on ceramic bearings, and it's roughly around the same price, and the action on that one is infinitely smoother. And no, it's not just that you need to loosen the pivot. I actually tried that, and when I did that, the blade came off centered, so I went ahead and tightened it back up to where it was before. And after I did, you'll notice that the centering on that is damn perfect. As far as the lockup is concerned, it is a liner lock, and this is one of my gripes. It doesn't necessarily always lock up reliably to the same spot, and I don't know what it is, but it's either going to be at 20% or 30%. Either way, 20 to 30% is totally fine. I just am a little leery about the fact that it's not a consistent lockup. I don't think that there should be any issue. It's not like the Best Tech Skirmish that I reviewed, where if you did not flick it out with force, it would not lock up at all. This one locks up just fine. Even if you two-hand open it like this, it's not going to fail on that lock, so you don't really have anything to worry about there. It's going to be about as reliable as any liner lock out there. The rest of this knife really comes down to personal preference. Could I recommend it? Absolutely. I know I've had it for a day, and here I am recommending it, but here's the thing. In the under $50 price range, knives have gotten really good. Like really good. Hence my review on this guy, the Best Techman Ronin, which if you want to see my video on this, I will go ahead and link it up in the corner. Back to this one. I really do get kind of liner lock Spyderco vibes, and I find myself wishing that it was a compression lock, but alas, Spyderco is not releasing that patent anytime soon, unlike you know, Benchmade with their axis lock. With all of that being said, this knife feels really good in the hand. You get a nice full 4-finger grip. There's plenty of handle scale showing in the back end. You can't really choke up on this knife, which is fine. I mean, they do provide some jimping back here, and there's even a tiny bit of jimping right there, which suggests that you could, you know, scooch your thumb forward for a little bit of extra purchase there, but you know what, it feels perfectly fine in a regular saber grip. In reverse grip, it also works rather well too, because of the slant of this handle scale, your thumb has a good spot to provide extra leverage in the ice pick style grip. It does have a sharpening choil here right after a decent plunge grind, and I'm not mad about that. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is D2 steel, and no, it's not how I feel about CPM D2, but this is regular D2 steel, so you're going to have the traditional issues that most people have while sharpening it. It's not specifically easy to sharpen, and it's not a consistent grain structure, which means that getting a perfect edge on here could be a little difficult, but then again, if you're persistent and you have the knowledge, it shouldn't be terribly difficult. You do get finger grooves here, but those finger grooves are chamfered and they're more of a suggestion. Like, for example, you could put your finger here on the top of that one groove, and well, it wouldn't be the most comfortable thing. I mean, you could do it and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. The flipper tab serves nicely as an index finger stop, almost like a finger guard, and that's nice. As far as the flipper sticking out, it's your typical pocket pecker. It's going to take up about the same amount of room as a regular flipper would. And so if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that. I kind of find myself wishing that they had done a version without the flipper at all and really gotten the most out of that deployment slot, because that's quite honestly my favorite way to deploy this knife. I find myself being able to do my typical tricks, and the knife feels good in the hand as far as balance is concerned, so there's no issues there. At the end of the day, I think you could do a lot worse for the money. Is it the best budget knife in its price range? I'm not sure yet. We'll have to stick around and find out, because in the next 2 weeks I'll be doing my grail or garbage ranking on this knife. So far, I'm excited to have it here and excited to have it on the channel. And just a quick reminder out there, if you have a knife that you want me to check out, my email and Instagram is in the description below. Feel free to shoot me an email and let me know what you have that you'd be willing to let me borrow so that I could do a review just like this one. Guys, that's all I got for you. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo. There's a button for you too. And if you want to see more just like it, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.